Hello, everyone. So, today I wanted to chat briefly about addiction and alcoholism. Now, what spurred it? For one of my many job responsibilities, I end up going to different institutions or different providers who do different levels of care for mental health or drug and alcohol treatment services. Today, I had a chance to go to a rehab, a drug and alcohol rehab. And one of the things we do is just ask individuals who are patients, clients, consumers, about their experience with the place, good, bad, how the staff treats you, do you feel like you're being heard, all those kind of, self advocacy type things. And one of the things I got, which was not on the survey, but from what I was talking with people, and I forget when you're right out of rehab or right in the middle of it, is the shame. And the shame that comes with receiving treatment and the shame that lingers for things done during addiction and some of the outlandish behavior that feels perfectly justified in the moment that I don't know, it resonated with me today. And so I was thinking about some of my own uh, curious behaviors in addiction and some of the things I felt even when I went to rehab. For anyone who hasn't seen any of my other videos, I've been to 5 rehabs and a halfway house. And again, I always plug thank you to the good people at Blue Cross Blue Shield, Geisinger Health System, the American taxpayer, because I could not afford all the treatment that I received, which eventually helped me get better. Um, and so I try to pay that back by being a good citizen. I pay taxes, I vote, I do all that stuff. So hopefully that can be my living amend to society. But at any rate, when I wasn't doing well, there was a number of behaviors and things that would have crept up over the years. And there's some things that are not for anybody to know and not for or for very few people to know. And I think one of the ones that came with my own addiction, my drug of choice was alcohol. And I think there's some if you have a family member who identifies as an alcoholic or is addicted to alcohol, however you want to frame it, the language around addiction changes constantly. But if they drank in a way that nearly killed them or killed you, you understand where I'm going with it. And if you don't, I'll try to explain a little bit. I would have traded pretty much anything for a drink at certain points. I like to think I'm a decent guy, but there's plenty of times I would have stepped on your neck to get to a bottle of vodka. I would have stole your purse and then helped you look for it. So I wasn't just doing grimy stuff, it was very calculating. Um, Shoplifting was another one that would come along with it. And there were periods where I was kind of desperate and getting more and more desperate. Now, mind you, underneath the surface, there was some mental illness brewing, but that doesn't write off some of the other stuff. And one of the things that I got into a habit of, which is penultimately bizarre, but became my normal, and that's another part of addiction, things that are way not normal become part of the normal. I was on probation, and I was too afraid. I was out of money. I had none of my own. And my parents very rightfully wouldn't give me any of theirs, not even $1 to go to a 12-step meeting, because I would hoard it and then go buy alcohol with it. And I was afraid to shoplift, obviously, though I had done it before. And I didn't want to go to a state liquor store. In Pennsylvania, we have state stores and steal from there. I thought there'd be like big repercussions. So I would go to a drugstore, and I had seen, not blaming intervention, I'd seen an episode of Intervention where a woman would drink mouthwash. And she drank quite a lot of it. And she looked drunk to me. So I had gone to one of the drugstores and brought my messenger bag with me. And I dressed up a little bit so I didn't look like what I thought a shoplifter would look like. I threw on like my pea coat and a pair of slacks and a polo shirt. And I shaved and rolled in and grabbed a bottle off the shelf and just shoved it in my bag and walked out the door. And nobody was any the wiser, I guess. And then got all paranoid on the walk home. And then I got home and I shut the door and it was like my whole life craving that feeling. So I hold on, my cigarette went out. Speaking of the face of addiction, we'll get there. Don't worry, we'll get there. Um, and I'd get home and I tried drinking it. And of course, because it's not meant to be consumed, the first amount of it came back up. And then I was able to hold it down. And that one time got me got me drunk. And that turned into the next time and the next time. And then I started to find other ways that I could get it. They sold it at Dollar Tree. And as long as I had $1.06, because we have sales tax, I could do that. And then actually it was harder to shoplift from Dollar Tree because I think a lot of people do, even though everything's a buck. I don't know. Um, and that became a pattern of something I would do almost every day because I didn't need money to do it. I would wait till both my parents went to work. I was living with them, go get it, come home, sit down, bring up YouTube, which was kind of new at the time. It hadn't been out very long. So there wasn't a ton of content. And of course, my parents had wireless, but it didn't go through the whole house. So everything loaded really slow. And I would pull up stuff that was like really sad. Like I pulled up the ending to Little Women and this movie Prayers for Bobby about a gay kid who commits suicide and the mother is one of, gets involved in P-Flag, like stuff that would pull at my heartstrings. Um, the end of Steel Magnolias, last episode of The Golden, like I said, things that pull at my hearts. I know. I'm a Mary. I own it. I love it. Didn't choose to be gay. I just choose to enjoy it. So, and I would sit there and cry. I think because I was numb, I just wanted to feel something, sort of. And I'd sit there and weep and drink and weep and periodically throw up and then just throw a towel over it and go back to what I was doing and then throw up again and put a towel over it. And this would go on until probably half an hour before my mother would get home. And me thinking if I stopped drinking then, that would, for whatever reason, sober me up, even though I'd been drinking for 6 hours. And if you can smell vodka at 10 feet, you can smell Listerine at 50. I mean, it just wafts all the way down the hall. So there was never a secret when they got home. They were disappointed. They were upset. All the feelings you have towards watching someone kind of die by their own hand and stubbornly and obnoxiously, because I might have been a little obnoxious when I drank. Um, Not at first. I was a happy giggly drunk at first, and then I would get really bitter and pissed off about things gone by and missed opportunities and how am I going to get myself out of this, and it doesn't even matter, and I would usually end up being suicidal by the end of most drinking sessions, especially towards the end. So that was one of the more dark periods of drinking, and that was before Mark entered the picture. It was actually right before Mark entered the picture. It was the summer before, and that was one of the darker periods of it. There's some things that I think many of us keep to ourselves. And one of the reasons I kept that particular behavior to myself was because it was appalling to most people. Even in rehab, the other alcoholics thought it was like, ugh, really? I never did that. Of course, they all said they never did it. And then when I disclosed it in a group, 4 or 5 people came up afterwards and said, when I couldn't sleep, I would do a couple shots of mouthwash to help me go to bed when my wife poured out all my booze. I'm like, okay, so I'm not a unicorn. I'm not the only person who acted out of desperation to try to find something to make me feel numb, you know. And in the pursuit of that thing to make me feel numb, I would do awful things to get it. I would do awful things once I had it in my system. Lie, cheat, steal. So it's not that uncommon. I think it surprised people that I would go to those lengths for alcohol, because a lot of times folks, you hear about them doing that for maybe street drugs, like heroin or meth or other stuff like that, where it's illegal and there's a whole different subculture around illegal and illicit drugs because you have to do purchasing it is an illegal activity. Alcohol, it's different. It's not. So sharing stories like that with other folks, war stories, they'd be aghast, and it was embarrassing, but it was also part of my truth. And I didn't want to keep it to myself, partially because I didn't want to feel embarrassed about it, so I just wanted to put it out there. But maybe somebody else wouldn't feel like a freak either. I mean, I even went to intake, second to last treatment center I was at. And they ask you at intake, what's your drug of choice and how much do you use? So I said I was an alcoholic. And they asked how many drinks a day. How do you measure drinks of Listerine? Like, how do you even gauge that? And I told them what I drank, and even they looked a little disgusted. I would hope that they would do some sensitivity training for those folks, so that if I come in and say I'm drinking vanilla extract, that they would at least, give me some sort of, you know, wow, you must have been really desperate. That must have been really hard for you to do all those mental gymnastics to justify doing that. There was a period where I was on disability and I was on food stamps, and that was the only alcohol I could think to buy. And I did buy vanilla extract and drink it. It didn't do anything but make me sick, and the sick tasted like vanilla. That was it. Um, so it brought me back today to a lot of those things that were. There's a lot of shameful stuff that goes on in addiction, and you look back and you're like, what was I thinking? And you want to feel like I wanted to feel like I wasn't responsible for that stuff, but nobody else did it but me. There was nobody else behind the wheel when I was driving under the influence. There was nobody else who said awful things to bartenders or who almost got punched by some straight guy I flirted with, and his girlfriend had to get between the two of us, and I'm just being a dope about it. Um, and all that kind of, stupid stuff when you're just making a fool of yourself, and you think you're being, or I thought I was being very cool. I keep trying to switch back from you to I. I'm trying to not say it like it didn't happen to me. I'm trying to keep the focus back on myself in even talking about it. So in talking to the folks today, we were talking about nothing to do with their actual addiction, but those stories creep in. They're talking about it 24/7 because they're in treatment. So a couple of them had a lot of shame and a lot of guilt, pulling down their sleeves to cover some scars that were left from maybe like IV drug use. We were talking about aftercare, and some of the folks were talking about not having places to go afterwards. There's no family involved in their treatment. At the moment, they are flying solo. So there's a lot of damage. Whether you think addiction's caused by a disease, or it's a choice, or it's a moral failing, or we're just, maybe broken or bad people. Whatever you think the cause is, I think most people would agree that untreated, it damages lives. It destroys lives, not only of the addict, but the people around them. There's victims all in a circle around the addict. There's family members, there's children, there's employers, there's innocent civilians, if someone's been robbed or hit by a car or anything like that. There's an outflow that comes with it. It's not just the person who has the affliction. And whatever means necessary to get that person help, whether it's through a 12-step program or through medication-assisted treatment like methadone or Suboxone or Vivitrol, or it's through a faith-based program like Celebrate Recovery. We used to snidely call them rock and roll Jesus, but there's a lot of people that swear by it, and a lot of people who enjoy a sober quality of life by going through it. It's not for me to judge, or go through therapy or other means. Whatever. If addiction is destroying your life and you're doing nothing about it, and it's destroying your life, we're not talking about the folks that are so far gone in denial that there's no reaching, at least not at the time being. Get on it. Try to do something for yourself. I know it's hard. And I'm not going to say if I can do it, anybody can do it, because I don't know that that's true. And I won't tell you that anybody can recover, because I don't know that that's true. I was in treatment with people that I know wanted it more than I did at the time, and who I know were trying harder than I was at the time. And I got better, and they died. And I don't know why. I miss them. I found this. I mentioned this in an old video. This is my old Alcoholics Anonymous big book. A lot of rehabs give these out. And if you go to any 12-step meeting, and if you're doing the 12-step thing, I don't, but I'm going to get preachy. Get a sponsor, get a home group, call your sponsor as often as they'll let you. Get involved, make coffee, and fold chairs. Okay, that's my preachy advice. And don't call me the only one who's preachy in AA. Almost all of them are. So I have a lot of men's phone numbers in here, and many of them are dead. They left nice messages. We looked out for each other. I'm having a rough morning. Can you get me a cup of tea? And you kind of make friends with folks like that. And they passed away. And these were These were good guys. These were fathers. These guys had children. They had wives. They had careers. I remember sitting in rehab and feeling guilty, thinking, they have so much more to live for than me. Like they should get better. They should. They deserve a chance. If I didn't get one or I didn't get better, what's the difference? I was having those. There's a lot of thoughts that go through your head when you're kind of walking the fine line between numb and dead, and you kind of don't care if you die. So it doesn't matter how much I drink or use tonight. I'll either get as high as I want, or I just won't wake up, and either one's okay with me. It's a rough spot to be in, kind of mentally, and thinking other people who deal with the same stuff maybe deserve a chance to get well, and I don't, and it's not like martyr talk. You actually believe it. Minds can go really dark places during the course of addiction. So that was some of my dirty laundry and dirty secrets. Again, the mouthwash thing is usually the one that draws most people back. And I don't say that just for shock value or for clickbait, but you probably won't find too many videos about that. I'd be surprised. I didn't look to see if there were any. But I bring that up because there's a lot of things that people are ashamed of, and they hold on to the shame of it, and they keep it buried somewhere. And there is a saying in the 12-step circles that secrets keep you sick. That doesn't mean you have to broadcast your business on YouTube, like some of us do. But if somebody else who's holding on to stuff builds up the courage to tell somebody and it takes a little weight off their shoulders, go for it. I don't mind putting myself out there if it'll encourage somebody else to maybe put themselves out there too. And if you're interpreting this as attention seeking, let it be that I'm trying to draw attention to just that. Take me out of the equation and just let this hopefully draw attention to the fact that addiction's hard, that there's a lot of things that people do that you might not know about. There's a lot of secrets that people keep around it. People carry shame with addiction a lot too. You have every right to be completely put out if you've been in the life of an addict who's caused damage in your life, and accept no less than acceptable behavior from those folks, from folks like me. But, some of us get better. Some of us get better and go on with our lives. And hopefully that's the trajectory that I will stay on. So thank you for listening. Please subscribe. Give a thumbs up if you feel I deserve a thumbs up. Feel free to share, too, if you feel inclined to. And you can follow Mark and I at Smokey Steve and Mark on Instagram. And we'll catch up with y'all soon. Bye.